Welcome to my channel of Mike the Birdman of Minnesota. I hope you're enjoying Adventures of Chris and Mike on my channel. I'm starting a new segment on our 2005 visit to the Grand Portage Fort. I hope you enjoy this glimpse into the voyagers' experience from the past.
The only place they could meet the owners from Montreal, called the agents, would be right here in this great hall. So during the day there'd be meetings. At noon there'd be a large meal cooked out of the kitchen, 7 to 10 course meal. The company agents bring out a chef and a baker from Montreal to help out with all the cooking in the kitchen. Very wealthy people they are. And then you had clerks in here, and you had voyager guides. So the elite in the company, the top notch in the company, are right here in the great hall.
The Great Hall itself was definitely the centerpiece of the 17 buildings the Northwest Company built here. This was actually the meeting hall for the Scottish shareholders and partners of the Northwest Company. From about 1779 to 1802, it was the largest of all the fur companies the world had ever known, at one time controlling 78% of the world's furs. The beaver was number one fur. That's going to make up about 70% of all the furs the company is shipping out of here. Most of the beaver itself is going into the European hat production now that Europe and Asia had extinct themselves of the beaver, where the outside hair is actually removed off the beaver and the hide itself discarded. It was just that soft inner fur that was needed, which will be compressed together to create that high quality felt for the men's hats and ladies' hats and even children's hats around the world. Most hats are wool or rabbit felt, but the more beaver thrown into the mix, the higher quality hat it becomes. To obtain the beaver from the natives, since there are no trappers during the fur trade, trappers don't come in until after the fur trade had ended. During the fur trade, all the furs come from Indians. And to get the furs from the natives, we're using high quality trade goods brought in from Germany, France, Italy, Spain, South America, Africa, and Asia that the shareholders of the company would invest into. Of all the trade goods on the table that we traded at the 120 trading posts run by the company, actually, it was textiles that was number one. It was clothing, bolts of fabric, and blankets that make up the number one trade good that natives desired. So once a year here at the Grand Portage, being that magical location with access to the Atlantic, to the Pacific, to the Arctic, to the Hudson Bay, and to the Gulf of Mexico, 1,500 voyagers, paddlers the company would hire from Montreal would arrive here. Half of those brought the trade goods, and then they went back with the furs for a world that needed them. And the other voyagers, they would come down with the furs and go back with the trade goods to resupply the interior posts so we can trade for a whole nother season. The company was running about 4 times bigger than Hudson Bay. And the company would leave here in 1803 to avoid the U.S. taxation threats. Being a Scottish company with French-Canadian laborers, the problem we have here is this is still U.S. territory. So the company will move north 40 minutes to Thunder Bay, Ontario, rebuild this place and rename it Fort William and continue on until the 1821 merger with Hudson Bay. But the best years for the company were right here at the Grand Portage. Of the 12 to 1,500 men that would gather here during that big summer gathering, mostly in July, the Great Hall here was also the dining hall or the mess hall for the shareholders, the partners, and the clerks of the company. Those Roman Catholic French-Canadian boys, the voyageurs, the truck drivers of the company, were outside the stockade. But in here, 5 to 7 course meals would be served. Professional chefs brought in by those shareholders who are making the equivalent of $1.7 million a year. So the men were here for 6 weeks, and they sat here and dined and had their business meetings here. Fine meals indeed for these men, with sheep and chickens and pigs and goats and oxen and cows being brought in by company schooner to feed the men here in the summer.
Music by kind permission of Dan Nestor. Stay tuned to my channel for more of our visit to the Grand Portage Fort, and please subscribe to my channel.